Good evening and welcome along. This is Mesme Politics. I'm Toby Lapati Mesme. It's Saturday night, the 12th of December, 2020. I hope you're doing well. Coming up on tonight's show as we dissect the latest in politics across the UK and the US from a leftist perspective. The big headline today is that Trump has failed and the Supreme Court has rejected his efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election. We have new polling data in for last month from Survation, one of the lesser known pollsters, and we have all the predictions and data coming off of that and all the analysis of what that should make you think. And we'll be rounding off tonight with the unveiling of STARMERISM. That's right. As many of us have been urging, Labour is going to be talking about its vision for the country and laying out policy in 2021. Can Keir Starmer salvage his prospects to be the next Prime Minister? What do we think of his ideas so far? We'll delve into that at the end of the show. Welcome along. Get in touch at any point. This is, of course, a live podcast, radio show, whatever you want to call it. I'd lean more towards podcast. I'm Toby Lapati Mesme, and you're listening to Saturday night's edition of Mesme Politics. First story of the day is Trump and the Supreme Court. I'll let CNBC television tell you more on that.
Tonight, the Supreme Court formally rejected that Trump-backed GOP lawsuit brought by the Texas Attorney General. The purpose of that lawsuit was to overturn the election result in 4 key battleground states won by President-elect Biden. The court refused to hear the case, writing, "Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections," unquote. In people speak, Texas lacks standing. So it's over at the polls, and now it's over in the courts for President Trump.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC.
Yeah, don't get the sales pitch in there. Yeah, there you go. That's it. It's over, guys. If you're still hanging on magically, if you're a Trump supporter, to some sort of belief that the result would be overturned, no, that's gone. The horse has been flogged well beyond dead. So don't keep flogging it, please. Just get on with it. You lost the election. All right, it was. The final lead was 4.5 points for Biden ahead nationally. That's quite big. That's, pretty impressive. Not nearly as big as the polling said, but as opposed to on election night where it looked like a 2-point lead, it's a little bit better. It's been a good win for Biden in the election. Now, the extraordinary thing about this is now various states seem to be saying they want to secede from the Union. They're not actually saying that, but they're saying, well, all the law-abiding states should band together and, law-abiding meaning Trump voted, that they voted for Trump in that state. That's basically the criteria, right? There's horrendous fraud. If Joe Biden won, there is, it's perfect, pristine, every vote must count if it's a state that Trump has narrowly won. That seems to be how it is going. You don't hear about all those horrible fraudulent problems in Florida, do you? Well, because they don't exist. They also don't exist in Georgia, but we're more bothered about it in Georgia because Biden won. Defying many expectations, I might add. The whole thing just reeks of lunacy. Trump deluded himself that the Supreme Court would come through for him, and many of us were actually worried at one point maybe it would. If they, we overestimated the intelligence of these people, so we know Trump's an idiot. We now know the people around him are also feckless idiots, because they've been unable to accomplish a constitutional coup. Reality is now biting. There is no way around it. Joe Biden will be the 46th president of the United States. There has not even been a moment where the courts have put that in doubt. There's not even been a moment where we've been waiting for a ruling. This has been nothing like Bush versus Gore. There is no similarity whatsoever, and some of the liberal press may have been a little bit hyperbolic about the whole thing because, hey, the system worked. We're going through. If Trump was smarter, This is the thing, okay? So don't believe the system is unflappable. If Trump was smarter, he had a team of competent ideologues around him, rather than frightened sycophants, he would right now be on course for 4 more years. If it had been a bit narrower and it had maybe hinged on 1 or 2 states, I can plausibly see conservative judiciary, corporate influence over politics, and the sheer mass energy behind Trump voters that just isn't there behind Biden voters. I could see a successful, at least initially, coup undertaken by Trump. So what I'm saying there is a demagogue can come along next time around, be it the 2024 election, the 2028 election, whatever it is. And this tactic can play now. It's now become an acceptable part. But the story of the GOP is basically tactics considered unreasonable eventually get taken into the fold. Reagan was an unreasonable extremist. Well, Goldwater was, and then Reagan came in, normalised it. You know, we'll never support Trump. He flounces in the face of our supposed family values. Well, we're all about Trump now. It's the Trump party. The Trump-old party. So now this has been done once, and various Republicans have said, we're not keen with, defying the will of the people. It's not a deal breaker. Still support the president, obviously, but we're not keen about it. Well, next time around, it's going to be an accepted part of the GOP playbook to defy the will of the people. Elections are now illegitimate in the eyes of half of the country when Republicans lose. This is the inevitable conclusion of the logic of a dying contingency of white America. The white lash is taking on new scale. It's the scream of a dying segment of the population, right? Older, whiter voters crying out for a bygone era. And because of the antiquities of the system, their voice gets represented massively in the Senate and represented massively in terms of who is president. If majority will was wholeheartedly reflected, Hillary Clinton would be president right now, and we'd have not even a question about whether Joe Biden would have beaten Trump. In the alternate history where the majority will and 1 vote counts 1 vote, Hillary Clinton is right now president of the United States. It's as simple as that. So this is the worrying thing. The system and the courts are not stable. Okay, the electoral system is not stable and secure. The courts are not stable and secure. The whole thing is rigged. The courts are ideological. They're stripping away rights for women, for LGBT people, for workers that have been foundational and the bare minimum, not even the bare minimum. That's going on. Congress doesn't represent people in America. What needs to be done before 2022, before 2024? If we don't want more disasters, we need to see scrap the Electoral College, okay? Do it proportionally, okay? Whoever wins the most votes is the president, or something along those lines. We need to see a proportional representational system for Congress, for the House and the Senate, to combat gerrymandering. And basically, we're never going to beat these people at their own game and gerrymander in our favour. How about we just scrap the gerrymandering, have an even playing field? You've got the majority of people behind you, you get the majority of seats. Simple as that. What we need for that is Democrat control of the Senate. We may well not get Democrat control of the Senate. It looks relatively unlikely right now. But even for the very bare minimum, little tiny chance of any reform, need Democrat control of the Senate. And even then, you're held hostage to Susan Collins and her friends on the Democrat side of the moderate caucus of let America burn and glacially progress forwards as everything falls apart around me. It's that sort of mindset. We need to see all those things happen. We need automatic voter registration. We need to make polling day a national holiday. All these things, right? That will go a little bit to fixing the disgrace that is the American electoral system. And right now, I can't see a realistic path anytime soon from where we are right now to getting that over the line. But it needs to be done. It can be won. It must be fought for. There'll never be a Trump concession. The man will never concede. But but it's not in his nature. He won't cognitively be able to accept that he lost in his own brain. He might be able to accept that Biden's going to be the president. He will not be able to accept that he lost legitimately, because that would cause the house of cards that is his psyche to collapse in tatters around him. He will not do it. So there'll never be a concession, but watch over the next 2 or 3 days, after Biden is confirmed, when the Electoral College meets. You know, of course, there'll be 1 or 2 strategies they follow. The hopeful one, the one we hope for, is that they accept or tacitly, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Biden's going to be the president, we're not going to talk about winning, Trump's going to announce he's going to run in 2024 and say it was stolen from him, but not really explain why it was stolen, and just go like, yeah, foster a sense of injustice and resentment among his supporters, so they're ready to power him to the nomination in 2024. That's the one I hope for. The one I fear is that they continue, and this will not derail Biden becoming president, but what it will do, because they're too scared to go that far, but what it will do is it will cast doubt and delegitimize the incoming administration. They may say, look, when we get to Congress, and they have to confirm, it's a joint session of Congress, I believe, and if you remember the video, Biden has to put through, when he was vice president, he was putting through the votes for the Trump administration. When that's all done, they'll be like, oh, there's a way we can stop it there, etc., etc. And it will just drag on and on and on and on. They get all their talking heads on, all the blonde, they all look the same. Like with those women that look like Barbie and have a habit of turning up on Fox News to defend white supremacy. Kayleigh McEnany and the rest of them. That Trump has absolutely picked because of their appearances. As was noted in a book I was reading, he picks his female spokespeople based on the fact that they suit the image he wants, which is obviously a very bad thing. But, Kayleigh McEnany and the rest will be on the news going, hi, it was stolen. Trump's going to be president again, refusing to acknowledge any, the tacit link with reality that Fox News and Republicans have had. It's been waning for many years. Now it's completely severed. It's 2 different universes, America now. 2 different universes. Ideologically and politically. People do not agree over basic facts. They don't agree over the pandemic. There you go. If they're not going to agree over that, they're never going to agree on anything. And that demonstrates to me a country that cannot sustain itself. It's falling apart at the seams. That's where we are right now. We cannot accept the same antiquated voting system going into 2022, going into 2024. If we do, we're asking for a disaster. That disaster will not be one party wins, one party loses. That disaster will be the final death of American democracy as Republicans adopt the now legitimized tactic of denying the results of a democratic election. Simple as that. That is the scary thing. And the job over the next 2 years for people in Congress and the president to commit to their duty to preserve the electoral system in the US and actually move some stuff over the line. Stop being cowards. Stop cowering away from dealing with the Supreme Court. Stop cowering away from dealing with gerrymandering. Fix it. Tear down what can't be fixed. Get rid of the Electoral College. Get rid of the gerrymandering by instituting a system of proportional representation. That's what you have to do. Period. End of. On to our next story of the day. Polling from Survation. The last national UK polling from Survation was taken between the 5th and 6th of November. This was done between the 4th and the 10th of December. We'll dive in first with voting intention. So, Conservatives have a 2-point lead over the Labour Party on 39% to 37%. Those are both unchanged from last month under the Survation data. Liberal Democrats, 8%. That's a loss of 1% in the last month. The Green Party has gained 1 point, putting them up to 5%. Scots Nationalists, well, the Scottish National Party as they prefer to be called, 5%, that's a loss of 1 point. The Brexit Party or the Reform Party or whatever hot mess it is now, 1%, no change. 1 in 100 people. And 5%, that's an addition of 1, are either don't know or another party. And that's where we are. That's where the British electorate is, according to Survation between the 4th and the 10th of December. The approval rating of the government is -10. That's plus 2 points. 35% view it favourably, that's up 2. Unfavourably, 45%, that's -1. Best Prime Minister, Johnson comes out on top of that, 39%, Starmer 36. Starmer's up 3, Johnson down 1. And we'll delve into this info and then we'll do a sort of a game plan of what would happen if this was reflected. And that day, between the 4th and 10th of December, with those results, we held a general election. We'll see what would happen. Let's delve in to the information. So, as Survation say, it has been 1 year since the 2019 UK general election. While the contest between the Conservatives and Labour has somewhat stabilised in recent weeks, our polling shows that there have been significant moves in vote intention share in the past year for the two largest parties. Following their resounding victory in December 2019, the Conservatives maintained and grew their lead over Labour, with a peak share in April of 48% and a 17-point lead. But by November this year, the Conservatives had dropped below 40% for the first time since November 2019. The race has tightened. If you look very carefully at it, you see that the Tories are now very slowly starting to pick up again. The Liberal Democrats have not built on the 12% share they achieved in 2019, while in a year that began with the UK's departure from the European Union, the Brexit Party retains some small appeal. This was conducted on 3,452 adults aged 18 plus living in the UK. Now, my view on this is I have multiple views on this, but the first observation is that the government's ratings continue to hold steady. Boris Johnson is above water. It's not as dire as the prophets of doom said it would be. This can all change, but things are stabilising now. We're out of the worst of the crisis. And Boris Johnson, not got great ratings, but they are ratings you can win an election on. The government rating isn't great, but it's also a rating you could probably win an election on. We're not in, this is a problem, the Tories are going to move on Johnson. We're not there yet. The government won't be happy about these numbers, but they are holding steady. They're not going to lose their nerve. Starmer is doing okay. He's definitely doing better than Labour was last year. Again, Labour's holding steady. Neither party is really where it wants to be going off this. The winners are the SNP, of course. 5% is a good national share for them. Labour is still not cracking the result they achieved in 2017 in seats or in vote share. That's a problem for them. Because, you know, I will say Labour is doing very well if polls consistently show, and a couple have, but if polls consistently show them getting a better vote share, better seat share than in 2017. I'll look at that and go, hats off, caps off to Keir Starmer, that's pretty good, we can work with that. That's the aim, that's what we need to be aiming for, that's what I'm expecting. Not waiting for a 20-point lead, I'm waiting for better than 2017. And as an extension of that, better than the polling after 2017, where Labour had a 2, 3, 4 point lead consistently for a while. Let's crack that. Let's at least have parity with that. The path to a Labour majority under first past the post looks inconceivably slim for at least a couple of decades, until demographics come and save the day. It really does look like, and I'm not saying there won't be a Labour-led government, there could well be a Labour-led government. We don't know. And maybe I'll be proved wrong, and I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, but I can't think of a turn of events, save the most obscene disaster ever that Labour will win a majority. I'll reiterate, if there's no deal, I think Keir Starmer will be the next Prime Minister. But I'm not saying I think he'll have a majority. Under first past the post, a Labour majority, a Labour government, are held just beyond reach, right? I can't see it happening. Can you see, let me know, can you see a Labour majority government in 2024? Because I can't. You've got the SNP. You'll either have SNP dominance or Scotland will be gone. And then Wales, there's no road to a majority through Wales. To win a majority, you're going to have to win the Tory heartlands, the Shires. And I don't underestimate Keir Starmer's appeal, but I think that would be a mass overestimation of Keir Starmer's appeal to the electorate right there. The government's ratings are going up. That is obviously to be expected. That's because the vaccine situation has improved considerably. That's what that is. Simple as that. People are feeling a bit more optimistic, a bit more gallant, and, ooh, yeah, the government's doing well. Boris looks cheerful again. Woo! That's what that is. But the damage has not been recovered from, the huge approval ratings that have been shattered by the COVID disaster, and which are unlikely. I cannot see the sort of leads we saw just before or during COVID materialising again for Johnson's Tories. I find that unlikely. Not inconceivable, but very unlikely. So that 400-seat result for the Tories that we would have had if we had an election in February or March, that's not going to happen. We're not going to have that. It's too soon to rule out the Tories gaining seats at the next election, but again, probably unlikely. Probably unlikely. The disillusioned make up that 5%. That other 5%. These are people waiting for a reactionary right-wing party led by Nigel Farage, a populist offering on the left, which is probably the least likely of the lot to occur because messaging, organisation, financial resources, there are massive structural hurdles. But that 5% will either be going to a Farage, Lawrence Fox, or indeed coming back to the Tory. They may be shy Tory voters. In which case, you can see how the election might go. Labour end up with that 37%, or maybe 36%. Lib Dems on 9 or so. Tories on 44%. There you go. That's their road to a majority. It's what happened in 2015. It's the Ed Miliband thing, right? People are like, the government aren't great. But actually, spend your time trying to win over Tories. They're going to like you. They won't vote for you. They might say they'll vote for you when they're feeling annoyed at the Tories. And then your own base won't turn out. This is the worry with Keir Starmer's strategy. One other takeaway, Labour is slowly creeping, and we have more on this with some data from The Observer, which we'll be looking at on tomorrow's show. Labour is slowly creeping into being one of the same. People are starting to not trust Labour figures as much. There was some stuff from YouGov on this. Keir Starmer was pretty trusted. That's going away. Of course it is, because he's been duplicitous about various things recently. But to see that on paper indicates that the good first impression is really, really eroding fast. And we know people don't trust Johnson, but now that's not going to be a good area for Labour to hit him at if they're also not trusted, which was the problem in 2019. People didn't trust Labour in the end. So even though they didn't trust Johnson, weirdly, they didn't trust Labour even more, which is obviously because of the mass propaganda campaign. But it was quite staggering to see that on paper. But it's what people think, and the people are sovereign, and they decide what happens, so we work with it. Now, final story of the day. The unveiling of STARMERISM. That's right, Keir Starmer is going to be peeling back that mask and telling us just what he stands for. What does he stand for? Well, from the Daily Mirror today, Keir Starmer's vision to win in 2024. Economy, love of Britain, and voters' trust. So, let's get some choice quotes out from Keir Starmer here. It is the absolute priority because the Labour Party was formed as a party to go into government and change life for the better. You can't do that in opposition. We lost very badly in December. We've lost 4 elections in a row, so we have to be utterly focused on winning the election in 2024. Everything will be tested against winning in 2024. He says we're running a 4-year election campaign. We have a mountain to climb. 2024, 2024, 2024. This is a man who wants to win the next election. That's his ambition. That's why he became leader. He's not sort of a principled actor like Corbyn who, sort of came to terms with and even liked the idea of being Prime Minister towards the end, but had never imagined or sought leadership or indeed being Prime Minister of the country. He says he's determined to win back the red wall in the local elections. He says we need to re-engage and reconnect. Credibility, trust. He says Corbyn's undermining unity. Says the economy is going to be absolutely central to what we do in the new year. And they're going to set out policies on, quote, violent crime, government waste, and Britain's place in the world. Now there's a few thoughts here. The initial takeaway is it sounds like we're reverting to Milibandism. Let's say the right things. Let's be like, oh, look, we're going to be tough on welfare claimants. We're going to be, tough on crime and all this stuff. What they do is some Tories are like, yeah, you're not that bad. They won't vote for you. And the base, the core support, don't turn out because you're telling them things they stand against. Government waste sounds like a code word for austerity. Violent crime sounds too much like law and order. Britain's place in the world sounds like neoconservatism. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm looking at this in quite a doom and gloom way. I really do hope I'm wrong, but I'm hardly going to be jumping for joy just yet. But we will see what Keir Starmer actually lays out. It's all very abstract, pretty devoid of meaning. It's all platitudes. This isn't going to win voters back, but one observation, if I may. There are good noises here, right? You can't get rid of the core support, but hearing noises about keeping committed to the broad principle of 2030 target for net zero, a green industrial revolution, and a while ago, a mention of some sort of commitment to the 10 pledges, which I'll read to you now. This is what Keir Starmer said he was committed to. There are some positive noises in some areas under this version of Labour. So, I'm just going to read you Keir Starmer's 10 pledges. Increase income tax for the top 5% of earners. Abolish universal credit. Put the Green New Deal at the heart of everything we do. No more illegal wars. Prevention of Military Intervention Act. Public services in public hands. Common ownership of rail, mail, energy and water. No more outsourcing in the NHS or the justice system. Full voting rights for EU nationals. Free movement as we leave the EU. And a compassionate immigration system and the closure of detention centres. Work shoulder to shoulder with trade unions. Repeal the Trade Union Act. Push power, wealth and opportunity away from Whitehall. A federal system along with the abolishment of the House of Lords. Steps towards legislative and cultural steps towards equality, and quote, effective forensic opposition to the Tories in Parliament, robust action to eradicate the scourge of anti-Semitism, promote pluralism, improve our culture, unite our party. Now, most of those things we've fallen short so far, and I find it almost the concept that any of these will be in the manifesto. Freedom of movement. No illegal wars, Prevention of Military Intervention Act. I can't see any of this being in a Keir Starmer manifesto. I just can't. I genuinely do not believe they will. But this is what he said. He said, my promise to you is that I will maintain our radical values and work tirelessly to get Labour into power, so that we can advance the interests of the people our party was created to serve, based on the moral case for socialism. Moral socialism basically meant no socialism in the end, of course. Now, looking at this more broadly, the messaging on certain things is good, okay? People will not like me for saying this, but talking about when you talk about these things, look, yes, Britain's a great country, yes, all this, yeah, it's bad, it feeds into nationalism, it's destructive. But if you say a few of these things, just to get that veneer, it's not real, right? When Johnson says these things, he doesn't mean it. If we need to say a couple of things, a couple of the right things in order to get into power and change the country, make it a better place for the majority of people in it, then you can swallow that bullet to an extent. Not when it means denying transgender people their rights or calling Black Lives Matter a moment, etc., etc. I'm not following it. I'm not defending any of that, especially none of the New Labour stuff, the appalling social policy under New Labour. But I understand a little bit of it, just a little bit, in a way Jeremy Corbyn couldn't do because he was not a career politician. He had principles I agree with. People like John McDonnell pushed him, saying, just say the right things here or there. We can get in, we can do everything you want to do. You know, it has to be done a bit in certain cases. But we create the worst of both worlds if we don't keep speaking to the needs of, respecting, not dismissing the views of the people who supported Jeremy Corbyn, the young, the disenfranchised, the left out, the marginalised. They form the base of the Labour Party. And you cross them at your peril. And Labour have abandoned them in many ways over the last year, which is really saddening to see. We need to see that reversed. Okay, it's all very well and good. Get some extra people in with all that nice outside shininess. But you need to keep the base. If you don't, you're sunk. Not only is it morally reprehensible, it is also electorally dim. The moves in the new year will either turn around Labour's prospects or Labour will slip back into obscurity and being 5 points or so behind the Tories consistently, if not more. And then this year, with a few 2-point leads, will have been the peak of Labour's prospects. Save a no-deal calamity which propels Starmer inevitably into number 10. That's how I see things. And that's only if no deal is as catastrophic as many people predict. Of course, that could turn out to be wrong. If it is as catastrophic as people predict, that's when I say Starmer wins. If no deal turns out to be a picnic, obviously not. But I'm not suggesting no deal will be a picnic. But looking at this, this is make or break for Labour. If they don't turn it round in 2021, get back on track, they're sunk. Not as badly sunk as they were in 2019, but pretty bad. Pretty bad. Let's see things that excite young people coming out. Okay, let's hear the policies, the concrete policies. Let's hear commitments about tuition fees. Let's hear commitments about climate change. These things really matter to young people. Let's hear about stuff on rent. Let's hear it all, right? Let's hear that rhetoric. Let's hear those concrete, radical policies. Then they can't turn around on them. That's what we need to see. Because the benefit of Keir Starmer is people don't believe he's far left. So if he commits to a few of the extremely popular 2019 policies, people won't think they're hard left because Keir Starmer's proposing them, even though they were never hard left, and people actually like them, but because they were told they're hard left, they didn't. If that makes sense. They like the policies, they didn't like the messengers. They like the messenger to an extent. Let's have some of the nice policies mixed in with it, please. That's what you sold yourself to the membership as, someone who could be a great salesperson for Corbynism. Sell some Corbynism. Or you've completely betrayed your electorate in the Labour Party. Let's see the 10 pledges maintained. Throw a bone to us lefties, please, or we will stop campaigning for you. Simple as that. That's it from me today. Thank you very much for listening. I will be back tomorrow at 7 PM Greenwich Mean Time with another episode. We'll be looking at the latest data from the Observer 1 year on from the election. There's some interesting revelations about Leave voters and Keir Starmer. Biggest broad survey from Opinion that has been done since the election. Thousands of people surveyed. We also want to see, we'll see what's going on with no deal. Maybe the talks have been extended. Maybe we don't know yet. But by 7 PM tomorrow, whatever's going on, we'll be talking about it. Thanks very much. I've been Toby Lepati Mesme. This has been Mesme Politics. And I'll see you soon.